Okay, folks, we'll kick this one off on time. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the very first of the T sessions, a training, education, and engagement opportunity for the likes of yourselves, volunteer rugby makers. My name is Ross O'Donoghue. I work full time with the IRFU as the Rugby Development Campaigns Officer. I'll be moderating today's session. Today's session is about hashtag Return to Rugby and how participation events can reopen your club and re-engage your community. You're very, very welcome. Today's participants will be largely from the IRFU Rugby Development COVID-19 project team, but we will look forward to a club case study in just a little while. I'm going to start by introducing you to just a little bit behind what hashtag Return to Rugby is and where it started. And it started about a week after this whole thing was shut down. The domestic rugby season was concluded in March 19th, and very shortly afterwards, plans were hatched to get back to the stage that we're working towards at the moment. Hashtag Return to Rugby is a concept which is designed to empower clubs to re-engage their own community. And the strategic support behind that is what we're trying to do for today, and the expertise you'll have access to is very much designed to fit in behind that. So that's what we're looking to do. It's a communications piece, it's the activations we're talking about today, and it's across all provinces, all stakeholders, all clubs, and indeed it's subsequently been adopted by the professional game. Hashtag Return to Rugby is everything we're trying to do in terms of reopening rugby in a safe way, in an inclusive way, and in a sustainable way. Michael Gallagher, I might come to you instead if that's all right. So we were going to end with a case study. I think what we'll do now is start with a case study. Michael, are you on board there for us?
I am, Ross, yeah.
That's great. Delighted to hear you loud and clear as well. So, Michael, what we're talking about here is hashtag Return to Rugby and the kind of events that you can run that are about re-engaging you in your community. And lo and behold, Ballina RFC on August 15th are launching a hashtag Return to Rugby celebration. Can you tell us a little bit about the event that you're working towards on August 15th?
Yeah, Ross, we are going to hold a big Tag Rugby event on the 15th in Heffernan Park. We're looking to have 40 teams of 10 people each, at least three women, on each team, and from 18 to 80, and also to bring the whole community on board and to have a real celebration there. And we have the local radio station coming along to broadcast from the club all day, and we have bouncy castles and all that kind of stuff. But of course, in a safe and controlled environment as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of it. Can you talk to us about why you chose the format you did? Why did you go with Tag Rugby?
Well, as the restrictions were being lifted, Tag Rugby was one of the first aspects of the game that became available to us, and we see it also as being, inclusive and fun and energy driven, and we're putting a lot of criteria in place to make sure that it's all done safely, but without being, overbearing on the day, to make sure everything is well planned without it looking like you're entering a hospital, if you know what I mean. It's fun and sport and community.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think people are used to now, whether we go into our local petrol station, pub, or whatever you're having yourself, people are used to a process in place that's around catering for COVID-19 guidelines. But is there anything specific around that you've looked at that does strike that balance between absolutely putting safety first, but also bearing in mind there's an experience to be had there for your members?
Yeah, absolutely. We're having meetings all the time, and this is our COVID officer is our president, Dr. Blaise Brunker, and there are many aspects to it, but one of the aspects that will become obvious to the people when they arrive is that with the 40 teams, they will each have a designated coach from the club who will take charge of that team for the day and will introduce them even prior to them arriving to all the safety aspects of the day, so that one specific person will be with each team and will just go through all the regulations with them and make sure throughout the day that they're safe and that everyone else is safe around them. So we're putting a huge amount of planning into place so that it will look non-restrictive on the day, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it very much looks like an open and welcome event, and that's really important.
Very much, yeah.
when you talk about safety, I suppose there's two elements to safety. Obviously, there's the actual safety element, but there's a peace of mind that comes with that safety. And that's where communication kicks in for me, in terms of, what you say right now around safety and around hashtag return to rugby can help in terms of getting bums on seats or boots on the ground on August 15th. So how are you communicating that safety element to provide the peace of mind to your community?
Yeah, well, our communication department is relatively good, so we daily get messages out there, and we will be starting that actually from tomorrow. We have a meeting tonight about it, but we have an exceptional young, vibrant committee running this show rather than the executive of the club. We have people from 20 to 35. We have Fiona Rowe, Corinne Beattie, Mickey Murphy, Gary Kavanagh, and Luke Sweeney, who's the first team captain, and they are taking charge and driving it from a community vibrancy type of thing, and then I take over with the PR and we drive it from that aspect. And of course, no matter how mad you are to get back playing rugby, you want to be safe first. So we're trying to balance both the safety message with the fun and the community. So that's up to me to do that. It's like yourself.
Yeah, you mentioned this big team in there, and I must say you're very modest in terms of your own abilities to get this message across. It's one of the reasons we're talking to you, Michael. But I suppose the club's objectives for the events. What are you hoping are going to be the takeaways from this, other than a fun day out?
Oh yeah. It's to get people back to rugby. We're a very energetic, vibrant club, and COVID has really hit everybody and all sections of the community, and it has hit us all, and we've taken a step back. So now we want to get people out, back to Heffernan Park, back to having fun, back to being part of the great community that is Ballina and its surroundings, and that's what we want. People to play sport really for what sport is about. It's about fun and being there with your friends. I think COVID may have taken the win at all costs type of thing away from sport a little, which is good. So we're looking to get back and put rugby at the forefront again on the 15th of August. There's no other sport in Mayo that day scheduled, so it's going to be a really, really big day for Mayo and West Sligo. Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant, and I think it's one of the things that we're trying to get across today is that whilst we do things with safety always paramount, we can go forward with a degree of confidence that if we go about things in the right way, these events can happen. And that's very much the subject of the webinar today. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with us, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah. If anyone wants to ask Michael a question, feel free to add it into the chat function, and we will look to circle back to that towards the end of the webinar. Just going to do another quick sound check on Mr. Colin Finnegan of the IRFU.
Hey Ross, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, sir. So look, that actually we've teed you up really well there now with Ballina RFC's hashtag return to rugby celebration on August 15th. Let's have a wider chat now through your good self around running events within those COVID-19 guidelines and how best to go about that.
Look, first of all, thanks Michael for jumping in there nice and early. I think it's one of those things never easy to do, and one of the new realities that we're living in. But yeah, look, I suppose to give the kind of overview, Michael hit on a lot of things there within your discussion. It's about being enjoyable. It's about being safe to do so. And it was something that kind of guided our principles within creating all the guidelines, which was return when it's safe and right to do so. So we could have put pressure and tried to get back earlier and tried to make sure that clubs were open, as soon as possible. But would it be safe and a fun, enjoyable atmosphere for people to do that? So we wanted to make sure we had everything in place for people to go and enjoy rugby again. As Michael said, win at all costs, it isn't a factor. It's about enjoying ourselves. It's about getting a rugby ball in our hands and getting back into our clubs. We're not worried about professional game or about international fixtures. We're worried. We want people to get back into their clubs, to get a ball in their hand in any manner of an enjoyable way of doing so.
Yeah, there's a question in there for well, it's actually based on what Ballina are saying. I'm actually going to pitch it at yourself, Colin, if you don't mind, because it really speaks to what we're looking at, which is, there's a projection there of 40 teams for Ballina. How can enough space be available for social distancing and all the amenities they're required to go around that? And that's a planning question essentially, and that's something that you've been across all the way through.
Yeah, and thanks a million for just giving me that grenade, Ross. The important thing is that, we've spoken to Ballina on this, is that everything is done within the guidelines. And I suppose we have our own guidelines within the IRFU, where we have developed guidelines for every facet of the club, including running both adult and children and youth events. But I suppose the one thing that absolutely supersedes everything is whatever the government jurisdictional actual guidelines are at that time. And everything you're doing has to go and line up with what is the correct government restrictions at the time. And I think that from any conversations we've had with Ballina is that's an absolute paramount, and it's been to the forefront of their thinking. And whenever we're going and creating any of these events that we're now speaking of and that we're going to speak of during the course of this, everything we do is organised and shaped by the guidelines, both the IRFU and the government guidelines.
Yeah, Dennis Murray from Mallow has asked a question that I'll take in just a little bit of a while. There's one other person we want to bring into this conversation before Colin kicks on with the running events within COVID-19 guidelines. And it's important that we remember that these guidelines do not replace existing best practice in any way, shape or form. And safeguarding is an excellent example of that. So Anne-Marie Hughes is the Spirit of Rugby Participation Manager within the IRFU and is very much the subject matter expert on this. So she's on the line. Anne-Marie, good afternoon.
Hi there. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks a million for being on with us. And I suppose, can you just remind us that there should be no compromise on running rugby in the right way just because of COVID?
Yeah, and I guess it's been alluded to earlier on that these are additional guidelines on top of any guidelines you've been following in your club. So your safeguarding practices have been standard in your club. And it's just to reiterate, I suppose there was some debate around numbers and space, but nothing overrides the safeguarding guidelines that are in place. And they're there to back up that safe, fun environment that you've been talking about. So the clarification of numbers is there within your safeguarding guidelines. Your club welfare officer is your resource that will help you in terms of, do you need to vet extra people? I'm going to say off the top of my head, you don't, depending on their role. There's no additional requirements on you. But your club welfare officer and your Spirit of Rugby officer is also there to help you with anything to increase that safe and fun environment. It's the cornerstone of our safeguarding programme.
Brilliant. It was really important that point be made, and it was really important that you be the one to make it. So thanks a million for that. Colin, we still have a couple of bits to get through in this segment. If there was other elements you wanted to add in there.
Yeah, I suppose that one of the things is some of the people on the call are some of the COVID-19 compliance officers, COVID-19 safety officers in the club, but just for everyone to have an understanding that, as mentioned earlier on, all the different various guidelines for each facet of your club and community are on our website. So they can break it down, even if you've only had access to maybe a coach or a compliance officer or some of those roles. Go onto the website, have a look. You'll also see we have broken them down into guidelines for youths, children, and adults as well. So, I think we've put them in place to go and give you the opportunity to, I suppose, fish for yourself. But feel free, we will be adding up my email address later on. Any queries at all, any sort of clarifications that you need, feel free to go and pass them through your provincial lead or even directly to myself.
That's great stuff, Colin. Thank you very much. The question that's come in from Dennis is around reassuring parents who are fearful of bringing their child back to rugby. And we have to say, first and foremost, that's a legitimate concern for any parent who would look to reintroduce their children to the outside world. And there's two elements to this. The first of all, with everything we've done, is safety and safety planning. And the IRFU is a very strict no plan, no play policy in effect for all clubs. All clubs must have a COVID-19 health and safety plan in place before they resume rugby on any level. Now, that doesn't necessarily address Dennis's question, but what does is transparency around that process, how we communicate that process, and whether it's something as simple as as we said with Michael's example, the first picture of the hand sanitizer that goes up on the side of the wall a month out before you do anything is all part of that process. Communicate to your community, to your stakeholders, to your parents, what #ReturnToRugby looks like within your club. And that's it is actually part of the operational procedures we've put in place, is having those plans and then communicating them. So quite simply, Dennis, that's it. It's about having the plan and then the transparency around that plan and then communicating that plan. We're going to move on to the next section of the webinar at this point, and this is about the Return to Rugby opportunities to re-engage your membership. We've already heard one case example from Ballina, and that's about opening up the doors in the right way and using Tag Rugby to cater for the widest amount of people. Colm, I'm going to bring you back in here again around those opportunities to re-engage your membership.
Just even before we jump into that, if you don't mind, just when we speak about #ReturnToRugby itself, is that an opportunity for clubs as well, Ross? You want to take that?
You're right. That actually speaks directly into what we were just talking about, and that's why we've called it #ReturnToRugby and not Return to Rugby. And it is the idea that everything we do around Return to Rugby is communicated, and that it sits alongside all of these opportunities. It comes back to the same thing. Once you have your event, once you want to do something with it, and this is the new way of communicating that we have to go about. We no longer can say something simply is happening. We have to say that something is happening, and here's what we're doing to allow it to happen. Those two things go hand in glove. So everything that we're about to talk about, Colm, that's exactly what that fits into, and that comes into our audience as well. So maybe coming back to the question, can I ask you about for the opportunities for these type of events? What kind of audience should we be looking at?
Yeah, I suppose when we think about the opportunities that are coming up now and presenting themselves, we have almost two groups that we can actually target. We've our club members, we've our core base of people who are always been there and who we want to re-engage within our club. But there's also the wider community itself. And during this part, we'll speak a little bit about ways we can do both. There's a lot to be said. We want to get back our players, our members, our people into our club, but this is the opportunity to go and show that best practice, to show the work that has been done by a lot of excellent volunteers on the ground to reopen rugby clubs and to go and have the opportunity to have people back around them.
So those opportunities, for the wider community, and I think that's something that we're looking at all times here, is how to cater the greatest amount of numbers in an ongoing and relevant way. How would you look at that?
I suppose we've looked both, within Ireland, we've looked at other member unions, some that have come back earlier due to the varying stages of COVID-19 around the world. One of the big things is family fun days.
I will get on to Pete about it though, Chris.
And it's an important thing that you actually, engage all members of a family. It's not just about playing members. So how can we go get, and I think it goes back to Dennis's question as well, parents fearful and needing reassurance to bring their kids back down. It's to make sure that they can be part of a family fun day, and to make sure that they have an opportunity to be around and to see the measures that are put in place, the health and safety plans. One of the, if you go to Australia, one of the most popular things they do there is family tag events. And one of the things that I think we've Chris Shields on the call here, and Ulster through Chris Shields have done an awful lot of work on walking tag rugby, which is a great opportunity to get all facets and all ages back in around your club with the opportunity to play. It's a very simple idea. It's ball in two hands, no kicking, but the lack of impact, the fact that you're walking means that people have the opportunity to go and utilize those skills in a fun and enjoyable way. And again, it's for all facets of the community, men, women of all ages. One of the key core concepts within this is it's not competitive. It's all about enjoyment. It's about fun. And that's what we're emphasizing. And Michael spoke to it earlier on. we want people back around our clubs with an opportunity to get a ball in their hands. It's not about winning, it's about enjoyment and showing that we are reopened for business.
Great stuff, Colin. Thank you very much. Very conscious that we've set a hard deck of 2 o'clock on this event to let you get back to your daily lives, and if you haven't had lunch already. But just one last question on that, just around the supports that are available for the opportunities that we're talking about.
So of course you obviously already have your provincial supports, but you know, I suppose in these new times we are making sure that we are opening ourselves out. We have a team of experts that work within the participation department who have years of experience of running tag events, running touch events, running family fun days, and various school events. One thing I haven't touched on so far is re-engaging schools. You know, it's an opportunity there. A lot of schools wouldn't have got to do any of their sports days. How can we go and engage them and invite them back around our club as well? But we have opened our doors. I'll actually just add in my own email address here and give people the opportunity. If you have any further queries on the back of this, you know, please feel free to contact me. I will put you in touch with the relevant expert in that field. And also for those that are interested in Tag and Touch, on Thursday we actually have one of our webinars dedicated solely to Tag and Touch, running events and what supports there are available within that as well.
Yeah. So we have a question in from Pedro Ribeiro in Dublin University Football Club. How about the off-field events such as pre-match lunches in terms of numbers attending? Are we governed by numbers attending as pubs, restaurants, though we are a club? How about numbers attending matches? I suppose first of all, maybe to address that first element of that, where if a club is operating as a pub, then it's guided by pub regulations, and I think that's an important and fair point to make.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, currently we are utilizing all the government guidelines within that respect. So you know, we don't have our own specific guidelines. It is a rugby club pub is being governed by the local government jurisdictional guidelines.
Yeah, and that applies to the very detailed regulations that are in place, subject to both the Northern Ireland Executive and the Government of Ireland. If anyone would like any further details on those, you can either contact Colin Finnegan or get directly through to your COVID-19 provincial lead, with whom many of you have already been dealing with. We did promise to see if anyone needed to wolf food before 2 o'clock, we'd get you off in time for then. So thanks very much to everybody, folks.
Cheers, folks.